Is your original character, or as it's more commonly referred to, OC, anthropomorphic or feral? Have you ever seen an animal in pop culture and been unsure as to whether they're anthropomorphic or not? And is it really an obvious binary decision between the two, or is there perhaps a bit more nuance to be discovered? Well, you're in luck, because this is a subject that's been bouncing around in my head for a while, and after giving it some thought, I believe I've come up with a pretty effective way to more accurately categorize what makes an animal character anthropomorphic or feral. Granted, it's not perfect, and a lot of characters will require a case-by-case scenario since there will undoubtedly be a lot of variables to consider depending on the character, but I think what I've come up with here provides at least a solid baseline for discussion. In order to get started, we must first take a gander at the dictionary definitions of both anthropomorphic and feral. What exactly do they mean, and how do we apply them appropriately? Anthropomorphic, or more specifically anthropomorphism, is the attribution of human characteristics or behaviour to a god, animal, or object. So, for example, we can conclude from this information that one clear indication of anthropomorphism would be the ability to speak by way of language. You know, a human characteristic. We can then apply this to animal characters such as Sisu from Disney's Raya and the Last Dragon, Spyro the Dragon from Spyro the Dragon, any dragon you can think of from the Wings of Fire series, and you know what? Even the dragons from the cinematic masterpiece, Pixie Dragons.
You explained it to assert the dragon!
You're right! I'm geeking out! I'm geeking way out!
There is no way that you can convince me that this movie wasn't a money laundering scheme. Oh, and by the way, I will be using mostly dragon characters from pop culture and media as examples in this video, because my channel is mainly all things dragon, but really, you could apply any animal character you can think of here, and it would still work. So, for example, Death from Puss in Boots: The Last Wish would also fall under the category of anthropomorphism, because, you know, he can talk. Other examples of human characteristics and behaviour would include things such as a display of human-like intelligence, social and societal structures, religion, and creativity like storytelling and planning. For example, Spyro and Ignitus in the Legend of Spyro trilogy are dragon characters that are fully capable of having conversations with each other by way of speaking a language to relay information to one another. In short, they can communicate verbally, like how humans would. And secondly, the definition of feral means, especially of an animal, in a wild state, especially after escape from captivity or domestication. So basically any animal you can think of that lives out in the wild, and though animals that can be domesticated and tamed like pets aren't necessarily considered wild or feral, they are still animals with animal brains and behaviour. Now, of course, that's just the dictionary definition of feral, which, to be honest, isn't the most specific definition in the world, and does leave a lot to be desired in this particular conversation, especially with how people have come to use it online. You see, from what I've seen, and especially in the art community, people typically tend to use feral to describe an animal character that behaves like a wild animal would in our world, which is fair. However, the real point of contention I have with their use of the word feral is that they also use it interchangeably with the dictionary definition to describe all animal characters who walk on all fours, or to be more precise, quadrupedal animals. And this creates a bit of a contradiction. See, if we were able to confidently reach a conclusion by simply going off the definition of anthropomorphism that an animal character like Spyro is in fact anthropomorphic because of his human-like intelligence and ability to speak and communicate using verbal language, then why is it that so many people refer to him as being a feral character? Feral implying that his intelligence is that of an animal you'd find in our world. And last I checked, animals in our world aren't capable of human-like intelligence. You can't be both anthropomorphic and feral, right? Well, no, that's literally a contradiction. So what do we do about this? Well then, I suppose that brings us neatly along to the baseline method I've come up with to more precisely differentiate between anthropomorphic and feral animal characters. And keep in mind that this is specifically for animal characters. So for example, the cars in the movie Cars are anthropomorphic objects with sentience, and I am not going down that rabbit hole, good lord no.
Holy shit!
We're going to solve this anthropomorphic contradiction with legs. Yep, you heard me right, I am not even joking. You see, after being around on the internet for a while now, on different art sites and social media where artists post their work, I've noticed that people generally tend to use the word anthropomorphic to describe a two-legged animal character, and feral to describe a four-legged animal character. And I'm gonna be honest, this is the complete wrong way of looking at it. But don't worry, if you've done this yourself, that's okay, there's no shame in that. After all, we are here to learn and discuss this topic together after all. I mean, heck, I used to use both of these terms like this to describe animal characters too. The point is, it's not as simple as just using two terms vaguely and incorrectly to describe your animal characters. There's a lot of nuance that's missing here, as well as objectivity. If you've seen my video about Nelly the Dragon, you'll recall that I used a very specific way of describing what exactly the type of dragon she is. First and foremost, Nelly is what's commonly referred to as a pear-shaped dragon, which is a popular term used to describe a bottom-heavy anthropomorphic bipedal dragon. As you just heard, one of the terms I used to describe her was bipedal, which means a creature that walks on two legs, and if you'll recall earlier in this video, I've used the term quadrupedal, which describes a creature that walks on all fours. Now, what if I told you that we can combine these terms with both anthro and feral to get a more precise description of a character? For example, let's go ahead and give Spyro the justice he deserves by giving him a more fitting description that accurately describes what type of creature he actually is. Spyro, as we all know, walks on all fours, which makes him quadrupedal. However, he is also capable of human-like intelligence and speech, which makes him anthropomorphic. Therefore, Spyro is a quadrupedal anthropomorphic dragon, or to shorten it down for brevity and conversation, a quad-anthro dragon. Does that make sense? Well, if not, let's do a couple more examples here so you can not only get a better understanding of how it works, but at the same time I can fully demonstrate the effectiveness of this method. Disney's The Reluctant Dragon runs and dances around on two legs. He is fully capable of human-like intelligence and speech, as well as being able to play a musical instrument and prepare a traditional picnic, thus meaning the Reluctant Dragon is bipedal anthropomorphic, or to put it shorter, bi-anthro. Drogon, Rhaegal and Viserion, the three dragons that appear in Game of Thrones, walk on all fours using their hind legs and wings, which is typical of the wyvern type of dragon. They're certainly more intelligent than your average real-life animal, but they don't really display human-level intelligence, and they behave more like pets to Daenerys. So it would be safe to say that the dragons in Game of Thrones are quadrupedal feral, or quad feral for short. Okay, so those are the ones I believe are simpler and easier to categorize. So what about the trickier ones that need a little more thought? Well, I've got a couple here that we'll try and go through. Sisu from Disney's Raya and the Last Dragon is a dragon character who is fully capable of human-like intelligence and speech. However, Sisu can be seen both walking on all fours as well as standing naturally on two legs. So what exactly does this mean? Well, for starters, it's no question that Sisu is anthropomorphic, but when it comes to being either bipedal or quadrupedal, the simplest answer is she's both. And yes, I have coined a new term for this, that being biquad. And I know, it's not the most creative term in the world, but it does get the point across. An animal character that is capable of standing on either two legs, bipedal, or on all fours, quadrupedal. And yes, I did not exclude feral characters from this term, meaning you can have both biquad anthro and biquad feral animal characters. In conclusion, Sisu is a biquad, bipedal and quadrupedal anthropomorphic dragon. Toothless is a dragon character from the How to Train Your Dragon franchise, who for the most part walks on all fours. Because there is this one scene in the second movie where he does this comical walk as he dangles Hiccup over the edge of a cliff as a joke, but I would argue that this doesn't qualify Toothless as a biquad, because he doesn't switch between the two at all really. This one scene is played off as a gag, and Toothless doesn't look like he can be naturally bipedal for too long here, unlike Sisu who looks quite comfortable pulling off both. So Toothless is definitely quadrupedal, but what about his anthropomorphism? Now, this is where it gets a little tricky, because Toothless certainly displays intelligence well above that of a wild animal, to the point where he can literally understand English despite not being able to speak.
It's okay.
Though, I think with the way the dragons work in the How to Train Your Dragon universe being that of tameable creatures that can be used as powerful weapons, transport, as well as glorified pets, I think it's fair to say that they all fall under the feral umbrella. They act way more like wild animals. I mean, there's literally scenes of Toothless wagging his tail and panting like a dog in the movies, which is a little bit annoying because a lot of movies tend to treat the animal characters as creature that behaves more like a dog than what they're supposed to be, but I digress. Toothless is quadrupedal feral, aka Quad Feral. Saphira is, once again, a dragon character that appears in the Eragon book series and movie adaptation of the same name, which I will be using both visuals and context from because I have not read the books. Saphira walks around on all fours and is fully capable of human level intelligence, however she cannot speak verbally. Instead, she communicates using language through her thoughts with Eragon, the main protagonist of the story. Other characters cannot hear her thoughts, only Eragon, though Saphira can understand what others around her are saying.
Legs a bit thin.
Only my voice is gentle, old man.
You know, I think based purely on the knowledge of her displaying human level intelligence and communication alone, I'm definitely leaning towards Saphira being anthropomorphic, despite her not being able to speak verbally. It makes sense, because even if you couldn't hear Saphira's thoughts, there's always going to be the fact that 1, she is really smart, and 2, she can still understand every word you say. So yeah, in conclusion, Saphira is quadrupedal anthropomorphic, aka Quad Anthro. Dragonite is a Pokemon that walks around on 2 legs, meaning they are bipedal. The tricky part of this is deciding whether or not they'd be considered anthropomorphic by the rules and logic of the Pokemon universe. Now, I've played a lot of Pokemon, even dabbled into the competitive side of things, but I'm not even going to pretend that I know enough about the lore of Pokemon to give a definitive answer on this. You see, from what I know, some Pokemon are absolutely capable of human level intelligence, like Mewtwo and Arceus, who is literally a Pokemon god. Dragonites aren't quite on that same level, but they are known to deliver letters to people around the world. They have jobs. Wait, so does that mean that Pokemon get paid? If so, what currency do they accept? Anyway, again, I really don't know enough about this to give an answer, so I'm just gonna leave that one up for debate, or to someone who's really into the Pokemon lore, and who could explain it in the comments maybe.
Ash and Dragonite have come out on top!
Yeah, baby! That's what I've been waiting for!
Now, as I stated in the beginning, this method isn't perfect, but I do believe it can provide a solid foundation for determining whether or not a character is anthro or feral. Some characters will be easier to determine than others, but there's undoubtedly going to be certain ones that will be debatable as to whether or not they are anthropomorphic or feral. It's essentially a template for the discussion of anthropomorphism. The more evidence you can provide for them being either anthropomorphic or feral depending on the character, the closer you get to a definitive answer. Oh, and I've added the bipedal and quadrupedal aspect to it not only to be as specific as possible, but mainly to help shatter this online ideology that anthro means 2-legged and feral means 4-legged, which, as I've proven with the examples here, it doesn't. It really doesn't. That's also one of the main reasons why I decided to make this video too. I want to try and change people's perspectives on this topic and introduce a more objective way of thinking for what classes as anthropomorphic or not. That, and I have no problem admitting this, but another reason is also because I've had people refer to Cicaden, my online persona, as being a feral dragon. Again, not that I blame people for thinking that, because this mentality is just something that's been rooted in the online space for God knows how long now, but when it comes to people's OCs, it's more a case of either looking through their artwork to find evidence of anthropomorphism, or lack thereof, or better yet, just straight up asking the artists if their OC has human-like characteristics or not. In the past, I feel like I've always made it pretty clear that CK is basically me, but as a female dragon, but that doesn't mean she's feral. The main or true version of CK is when she's quadrupedal, though I do have a bipedal version of her, which is meant to be like an alternate universe type thing, but for the sake of staying consistent, her quadrupedal form is the one that truly matters here. She's fully capable of human level intelligence and verbal communication, because that's how the dragons of my world operate, and she can also use a drawing tablet as well as wear stylish looking arm and leg warmers. Therefore, using this method, I can confidently conclude that Cicaden is, objectively, a quadrupedal anthropomorphic dragon.
Yes. Come on! Yes! Yes!
Nice.
There, I did it! Now no one will ever call CK feral again. Nah, but seriously, this is a video I've been meaning to make for a while now, and I really hope I can throw a wrench into the system with this one. And to start, I'm going to be using the terms I've mentioned in this video as tags in my artwork from now on. And I would have had this out a lot sooner, but to be honest, I've had writer's block since April of this year, and when I finally got the script for this made and went to record it, the day after, of course, I get Kobold 19. Wonderful. So yeah, it's kind of like the universe has been against me lately, but you know what? The video's done now, so yay! And on that note, thanks for watching. Like and subscribe or I'll send an army of dragons to squat at your house. We can totally do that too. Human laws don't apply to us. Okay, that's it. That's the end of the video. Bye!